Good morning. This is Omni View, episode SI63 for May 28th, 2026. Balanced news perspectives. We'll cover what happened, how different viewpoints frame it, so you can decide for yourself. U.S. core inflation rose to 3.3% in April, while consumer spending edged higher, shaping expectations for interest rate decisions that affect household costs nationwide. The Justice Department has opened a criminal probe into whether former columnist E Jean Carroll made false statements about funding for her civil lawsuit against President Trump. The inquiry focuses on the sources of money used in the earlier legal action. Details remain limited as the investigation is in early stages. Outlets tracking the case note that the probe examines financial disclosures tied to the lawsuit rather than revisiting the underlying allegations. Groups supportive of the president view the move as accountability for what they see as politically motivated litigation. Critics argue it risks shilling future claims against public figures. Both sides agree the inquiry centers on funding statements. They differ on whether it represents standard legal scrutiny or targeted pressure. What evidence would clarify the funding claims under review? Shifting now to developments in the Ukraine conflict. The EU's chief diplomat stated that Russia faces mounting challenges on military, economic, and diplomatic fronts. The assessment comes amid ongoing talks and battlefield developments. European officials frame the situation as one where pressure on Russia is increasing across multiple fronts, potentially opening space for negotiations. Russian statements continue to emphasize resolve and reject external characterizations of weakness. Observers note that battlefield realities and sanctions effects form the factual basis. Interpretations differ on how quickly or decisively any shift will materialize. What measurable indicators support the EU assessment? Meanwhile, Iran has restored internet access after an 88-day nationwide blockade. Connections to the outside world remain limited by long-standing filters and controls. The blackout period produced documented economic and social disruptions. Iranian authorities present the restoration as a return to normal operations under existing rules. International observers and domestic users report that pre-blockade restrictions continue to constrain information flow and business activity. Both accounts agree the blackout has ended. They differ on the practical extent of restored connectivity. Which sectors reported the largest economic losses during the outage? The EU's top diplomat also called for Russian forces to withdraw from Moldova and Georgia as part of any Ukraine peace framework. The statement referenced limits on Russian military size under a potential agreement. EU representatives tied the troop withdrawals to broader regional security guarantees. Russian officials have historically rejected external demands on forced posture in neighboring states. The factual disagreement centers on whether such conditions form part of current talks or remain outside the immediate agenda. What legal or treaty basis supports the withdrawal request? Turning to business developments, Actis reached at a $20.5 billion first close for its flagship energy fund. This amount represents roughly 40% of the target. Fund managers present the result as evidence of sustained capital allocation toward energy projects. Investors weigh returns potential against policy and technology risks in the space. The amount raised provides a concrete benchmark for current market appetite. Which types of energy projects does the fund target? In technology news, a report commissioned by environmental groups calculated that data centers used 22% of Ireland's electricity last year. The centers added an average of €360 to household bills between 2015 and 2023. The report authors link data center growth to higher consumer costs and call for policy review. Industry representatives typically point to economic benefits and job creation from the facilities. Both sides reference the same electricity consumption data. They differ on net impact and appropriate regulatory response. How does Ireland's data center share compare with other European countries? Now, to really understand this story, there's something most coverage leaves out. The Federal Reserve's preferred core PCE measure strips out volatile food and energy components to isolate underlying price trends. Those trends then feed into economic models that project future inflation paths under different interest rate scenarios. Those projections, combined with assessments of employment and financial conditions, inform whether officials lean toward holding rates steady, easing, or tightening. Next time you hear claims that a single monthly reading forces a rate cut or hike, ask yourself which measure is being cited, what other indicators are moving alongside it, and what historical episodes show similar readings producing different outcomes. Tomorrow, watch for further updates on consumer spending patterns and any shifts in Federal Reserve communications around the latest inflation figures. That wraps up today's Omni View. Remember, the best informed people read more than one perspective. If this show helps you do that, share it with someone who values fair coverage. See you tomorrow. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.